Hey, welcome to the Sequential Artist Workshop Pro Calls. Every week we ask another creator, another graphic novelist to come sit down with us and tell us where they came from, what were the first things they made, what did they make recently, how did they do it, what are they thinking about now, how are they going to move forward, how do they keep going, all those things, career things, art things, feeling things, creative things. Every month it's a new creator, new challenges, new stories. Come check it out. Come sit down with us. You can sit down live for some of these calls by being a member of our groups. You can find us at learn.sawcomics.org. Come check it out. Come be a graphic novelist with us. Come join us on the socials. Sometimes it's Comics Workshop, sometimes it's Saw Comics. Either way, come check us out and welcome. Well, welcome everybody, and this is another pro call. This time with Lucy Knisley. Yay. Lucy, thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
As you've mentioned in the warm up, this is informal, so it won't even be much of a formal introduction or anything like that. And I've been throwing my cat off the table constantly, and now she's not here when we're recording it. Anyway, so everybody, we're really honored to have Lucy Knisley here. I just discovered an amazing fact about her arms, which we'll hopefully get to. But Lucy is the creator of so many books. I've actually lost count, although I'm gonna take a stab and say seven. Is that right? Seem right? Eight?
I think it is 13
What?
or
I only
14.
have,
Yeah.
well, here, I'll list the ones I know about. There's French Milk and Relish, and there's a travelogue called Displacement and a travelogue called An Age of License. That one I haven't read. Kid Gloves. There is a Makeshift Bride. What's that? That's about five or six. And then Go to Sleep. I Miss You. But are there there must be like five others that I've missed. And but you
There's
don't have to.
picture books.
Sure, you could list those, but anyway, you Lucy's been doing mostly memoir, and again, correct me later if that's not the case for a long time. And I know a lot of you are fans, and so I'm really happy we've connected. I don't think we've ever crossed paths in person, and we'll have to correct that also. Um, and Okay, I'll just let you start. And I'm going to spotlight you if that's okay. So that means you'll get big on
Yeah.
everybody's screen, including your own. And also, there we go. And also, you mentioned that this will just be an informal talk. So I'm just going to let you talk. And
Sure.
also, let us know how you'd like questions to be asked or discussion to be sort of, or, what kind of give and take you'd like. Um, but really, we just love to hear career stories and where you came from and how you got here and what you're working on and things like that. So,
Great.
okay,
Yeah, I mean, I was I give a fair amount of presentations, but usually to sort of younger people, people starting out, people less familiar with comics. So I thought with this group, you're already pretty familiar with graphic novels and comics, and so a lot of the stuff in my formal presentation would be old news to you. So as this is just a like a pro talk, I can talk about my career, I can talk about my books, my experiences in publishing, um, that sort of thing. And if you have a question, just like interrupt me. That's totally fine. I'll just ramble otherwise. So yeah, direct me. If you have like specific topics you want me to focus more on, you can interject here, but I can also just start sort of with how I got started in the comics industry and what I do now as opposed
sure.
to what I first began. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So I got started. I was in art school because I had a really bad time in high school. A lot of comic artists do for various reasons, but I had a really bad time. I went to four different high schools, so I knew that I would not be going to a liberal arts college. They would not be interested in me after such a transcript. But I really loved to draw and I really loved art. And I loved to write as well, but I knew that art schools would be a little more forgiving of that kind of transcript of high school. So I ended up going to art school. I got a scholarship to the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, which is a great school, but at the time was very sort of a formal fine arts education where you have to take a foundation year where they make you take sculpture and performance art and things. So it was it was a interesting way to begin the comics career. And at the time, SAIC, the School of the Art Institute, did not have any comics programming at all, no education in comics. Now they do. They have a great program for all of this. But at the time, when I got there, I just sort of had to make my own way through this very fine arts program. I started publishing comics in the school newspaper. I started taking a lot of writing classes where they would allow me to make comics as my writing assignment. I started finding fine arts teachers in the drawing department that would be more free with what they would accept in terms of assignments, and I handed in a lot of comics. So by the time I graduated, I knew that I wanted to make comics, but I had no formal like comics education. I just had this fine arts background. So I I got into the Center for Cartoon Studies in Vermont, and I went there for 1 year, and then I finished my MFA there remotely. I did my thesis year back here in Chicago. So that's how my education went. While I was in grad school, I published my first book. It was right after Fun Home started winning a lot of awards. So publishers were starting to be like, oh, graphic novels, maybe these are legitimate books that we should publish. So I kind of entered into the comics industry at a good time for publishing because publishing was really gung-ho about comics all of a sudden. Unfortunately, most of the publishers that wanted to suddenly publish comics didn't know how to sell comics. They were just like, yeah, this graphic novel thing, this sounds fun. So my first book was with Touchstone, or what was it? Touchstone is a division of Simon and Schuster. Yeah, Touchstone. So this is a travelogue that I made when I was 20 years old, 21 years old, about going to France with my mother, who's a retired chef. So it was very much about food and about art and about the angst of being a 20-something-year-old. I was very lucky that I got a publishing contract with this book. But as I was 21 years old or something, 22, I had no idea what I was doing in terms of publishing. And I had friends that had gotten really, really screwed over by publishing deals. Comic artists' history is notorious for having comic artists get screwed over, losing the rights to their work, getting tragically underpaid. And I wanted to protect myself. So I Googled who is Alison Bechdel's agent? And this woman came up who was not Alison Bechdel's agent, but had worked with her as a publicist, and she was getting into agenting. And I wrote her an email and was like, "Hey, you know about comics? You've worked with Alison Bechtel before, who is like a very wonderful artist whose career I would love to emulate. Would you be interested in taking me on as an agent? By the way, I've already done the job of getting the publishing contract. All you have
Oh.
to do is like look at the contract for me and tell me I'm not getting screwed." And she was
Can,
like, "Great."
can I ask a question? Wait,
Yeah.
so French Milk hadn't come out. You're talking about the publishing contract for French Milk?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Because I had self-published this book before it came out. I'd self-published it and I took it to conventions,
Uh-huh.
and it was picked up at MoCA, the Museum of Comic and Cartoon Arts convention, by a editor for Random House who offered me the contract. So that's how it was discovered. So
Cool.
always be very nice to anyone who picks up your work at conventions. You never know. So yeah, so that's how I got my agent. I think it is kind of an unusual way to get an agent, but you know, a nice polite email can't hurt. And I've been working for her for 20 years, so that's all good. And she's really helped me with my career and helped me to understand the publishing industry. So that's been lovely. I really recommend getting a literary agent if you're interested in working in the publishing industry, not just to protect yourself from getting screwed, but because they can explain what the contract means to you, and they can help make sure that all the licensing and stuff is above board and you're not getting like losing
Mhm.
all the rights to your work. So so for me, who has a lot of trouble reading long contracts and understanding what they mean, it's been absolutely vital to have a literary agent. So yeah, so after this book came out, a lot of it was about food. I was in grad school when it came out, and a very wonderful CCS, Center for Cartoon Studies, has an amazing visiting artist program. I know that SAW does as well. So we were always getting these incredible artists coming to visit, and an artist that I very much admire who does a lot of autobiographical work, so I felt a kinship with them, came to visit, and I said, "Hey, I'd like to give you my book. Here's my book. It's my first book. It just came out. Please let me know what you think if you have the time." And the next day they came back and they said, "Oh, it was all right, but nobody wants to read about what you ate. Like it's so boring. Like writing about food is so boring. It's such a cheat."
Wait, now you have to tell us who that was.
I don't. I do
Oh,
not. I very specifically
oh, we'll
did
go
not.
back and Google it. Okay.
I don't think it's online, but good luck. Um, because I immediately took this as a challenge and
Uh-huh.
immediately was like, okay, all right, well, I actually do really care about what people ate. And I do feel like a strong emotional connection to food and food memories. So I started to write about my memories of food from growing up. So my mom is a retired chef. I grew up in the food industry in New York. Um, Everybody in my family is like a cook or a chef or a caterer or a food writer, and it's just the world that I was brought up in. So I started to write stories about being brought up in the world of food and collected all of these graphic stories into this book. This is my second book called Relish, which came out when I was like 23 or something, 22. Um, and this was my first book with First Second, a publisher that actually knew how to sell comics, which was great,
Mhm.
as opposed to Simon and Schuster, who were like, "Do we like go to Barnes and Noble? Like, where do we go?" They'd like never heard of comic shops before. They'd never heard of conventions, and I was sort of like, "Okay." But I started working with First Second. They were great. I am actually working on a follow-up to that book now, which is really interesting because I wrote it when I was in my 20s and I could digest like a log, like I could digest anything. And now I'm in my 40s and I can't digest the way that I did in my 20s. So I'm writing about food and eating, but it's like a very different vibe because in this book I'm like, we eat everything. And now I'm like, eat some things and also be aware of how what you eat affects the environment and it's like your body and all of this stuff. So it's a different vibe. But so yeah, so this book was very joyful and very celebratory and like sense memory stuff. So that was my second book. After that, I was in my 20s. I had graduated from grad school and I was working kind of freelance illustration and selling my books a little bit here and there. But what I really liked to do was to travelogue. And so I was making a lot of travelogue comics and sort of self-publishing them. But I had this year when I was 27 where I had these two big trips, and I would travel on like every trip that I took. But for these two big trips when I was 27, um, the first one was a trip on a cruise ship with my 97 and 98-year-old grandparents. So these, am I getting the order right? These trips occurred in the same year, and I can't even remember which one's which. Um, so my grandparents were in an assisted living facility, and something you should know if any of your loved ones are ever in these facilities is that these predatory vacation companies will come to
Oh.
the assisted facility and like be like, sign up for this vacation. It's great. And they don't take into account like physical limitations, financial limitations, any of that. So my grandparents, these landlocked school teachers from Ohio, got suckered into signing up for a cruise. We're not exactly sure how it happened, but anyway, they signed up, they put down a deposit, and then our whole family went, "Wait, what? Where are you going?" um, so they were not really physically and corpus mentisly up to doing this, and I was this 27-year-old freelancer and their eldest grandchild who was the only one who like wasn't in school or having a 9 to 5 of some kind, and I volunteered to go on this trip with them and sort of provide my services as a full-time nurse, having no experience of this and having like vastly underestimated the amount of work that this would take and the sort of existential dread that this would incur. That said, I'm very glad that I went and that I travelogued this trip because it was their last trip before they passed away, and it was a nice sort of bonding experience. I will never go on a cruise ship ever again. As long as I live, I will not set foot on one. Um, Turns out it's not for me. I don't like being on a giant floating sickness barge, but I think my grandparents had a pretty good time, and I chronicled it all in a travelogue, and I'm glad I did. That same year, I was invited to a convention in Norway, and they paid for my plane ticket, and I said, would it be okay if I flew back like a month later? And they were like, yeah, it's the same price for us. I was like, great. So I flew over to Norway, I did the convention, and then I sort of couch hopped and stayed with friends who lived in various parts of Europe. I had a friend working in the wine industry in France. I had a passionate love affair with a Swedish mathematician who lived in a famous commune outside of Stockholm. So I just went on this kind of weird, interesting trip, and I chronicled that. And I just thought when I got home that these two trips were such an interesting comparison of this time in your 20s when you're sort of like able to have these weird experiences, but at the same time, you're sort of coming into the realization that someday you will die and everyone you love will die. So it's like, celebration of life, understanding of death. I thought these were kind of an interesting pair, and I brought them to Fantagraphics, and Fantagraphics published these were my next two books. So I kind of consider these twin books. What happened
Okay,
after
I have a
that?
question about that.
Yeah,
Did you not have a satisfactory contract with First Second to publish another book after Relish?
I did, but First Second has a like an aesthetic. They have like a system and an aesthetic. Like they want scripted books, they want like full color books that you thought out ahead of time. And travelogues are a little too
Oh,
indie for them.
okay.
So for my travelogue stuff, it's all very like immediate and like journaled and watercolored and that sort of thing. So it's very it's much looser, more journal comic style than the more formal memoir style that I was working with for Second for. So they were not interested in my travelogues, but that's fine. Fantagraphics did these ones, and it's great.
Linda is asking if your agent worked on that deal with Fantagraphics.
She did. The thing about these books is that I had already made them and self-published them by the time I took them to publishers. So I'd kind of already gotten what I needed out of them to an extent. What I wanted was the distribution that a larger publisher could afford me.
Mhm.
So I didn't get paid a lot of money for the publication of these, but Fantagraphics handles the printing and the distribution for me. And I don't like doing that. I don't have the storage for a lot of books. I don't like going to the post office. So for these books, I didn't care about the advance as much as I did for the other books. So my agent helped me, she worked on it for me, but basically my goal in publishing these with Fantagraphics was to have the books out there in existence, um, rather than making a lot of money on them because I already had contracts with larger publishers that I was working on, and these were sort of a smaller indie project. Does that make
Were you
sense?
working? Yeah, it does. Were you working on a project at the same time? Like, was there one that was contracted? Okay, so maybe we'll get to that.
Um, what was I working on? I was sort of trying to find my next book for First Second,
Uh,
and I wasn't sure what that looked like. I think I had just finished touring Relish. This was back when publishers were sending authors on big tours. So I like went across the country and I was on tour for a month and I went to all these different places and schools and bookshops and libraries and stuff. And so then like as soon as I got back from touring that, I started doing travelogues and self-publishing them and stuff like that. So that was the idea that I would like do a big book and then a small book.
got it.
All right, let's see. Um, what next? I have a whole pile here, but I'm like not sure. Ugh. Uh, okay. So pretty soon after that tumultuous year. My ex-boyfriend from college, who I had known in Chicago, showed up in New York City on my doorstep and suggested that we get married. So for the last like 3 years, I had been single. We had not been together, but we'd sort of we referred to it as our like Rumspringa. We'd like tried dating other people and decided it wasn't for us. So we got married, but I found it really interesting because I went from not being in a relationship to being engaged with no preamble, like no anticipation for it. And I had not been like dreaming of my wedding day until all of a sudden I was like, I have to plan a wedding. Um, and I was really floored by how the wedding industry worked, the sort of malicious marketing and all of the weird sexist traditions and all of this weird stuff. So, in order to try and make it my own, I started writing essays about this and about what I was experiencing planning a wedding and sort of understanding the wedding industry. So that became my next book, Something New, Tales from a Makeshift Bride. So this is my next one. Um, it turns out that like when you're making a book right after planning a wedding, you've got like a lot of creative energy that doesn't like have any place to go. So it's like a 300 page graphic novel. Yeah, it's like 300 pages, full color graphic novel. Um, Fun fact, this was also the last comic that I ever hand lettered. The last book, I should say, that I ever had hand lettered. I don't know why I did that. That was a bad idea. I was very like weird about hand lettering early on in my
Wait, you
career.
don't know why you ever hand lettered, or you don't know why you stopped hand
I
lettering?
mean, I know why I did it, but I'm kind of mad at myself for doing it. It's a waste of hand strength. You
Okay.
only like your hand will is only going to last a certain amount of time, and I can't believe I spent some of that lettering a 300-page book. Like
All right.
fonts exist for a reason. Don't do what I did.
I'm writing regrets hand lettering a 300-page book in the chat. I'm summarizing as we go in the chat for people who like that sort of thing. So sometimes I might ask for the correct word. Regret sounds right here.
Yeah. Okay, after my partner and I got hitched, we started trying to have a kid together. Um, Same deal. Lots of weird sexist stuff, weird traditions and superstitions, and I was really fascinated with it. And as a way to kind of try and understand my circumstances, I started writing about it and making comics about it. So this one's very researched in terms of the history of reproductive medicine and the weird mythologies of it. This is it's a book about reproductive medicine, and it also talks about the dangers of pregnancy and how intense and hard it can be on your body. And I almost died. I'm a healthy person. I have health insurance. I took care of myself. All this stuff. Still almost died. Like it's a very dangerous process. It's very hard on your body, and we have a very high maternal mortality rate in this country for basically no reason. I mean, I think we all know the reasons, but anyway. So this was a book about reproductive medicine that I've always been interested in and I really wanted to write about. So this is a book that I care about a lot. It has understandably been banned in a lot of places, but
What?
there,
Really?
yeah, yeah.
In America, you mean, or somewhere else?
In America. Also, relish is banned in a lot of places.
What?
This is like a very wholesome book about like making cookies with my mom. Banned.
Wow. Okay.
There's a story in Relish about being 12 and I get my period for the first time. And the kid that I'm with in Mexico, when we're there, and I get my period for the first time, and this 12-year-old boy that I'm with discovers that he can buy dirty magazines in Mexico in a way that you can't in New York. So
Huh.
he buys a bunch of dirty magazines, and therefore it's a child accessing pornography, and therefore it is banned. That's why it's
Oh,
banned.
funny.
I'm
Okay.
sure no 12-year-old has ever accessed pornography in our modern age.
No. So wait, Kid Gloves is banned for what reason?
Because it's a book about reproductive medicine that sort of addresses it head on. It talks about how DNCs are life-saving. It talks about how like the various aspects of reproductive medicine in a really like clinical scientific way, and sort
Wow.
of expels a lot of myths about it. So some people don't like that.
Wow. Right.
All right. So yeah, so then I had this fun baby. The baby was really cool. I had a really fun time with the baby. I started writing journal comics about the baby and how they were really fun and interesting and cool to hang out with. And I collected all of those journal comics in this book, which was my next one, Go to Sleep, I Miss You. And it's just like little haha few panel comics about having a baby and how it's fun. And they're weird and gross,
Now,
and I love
I have a
them.
question about that. Now, that's first second also. I have it here, but now they're
Yes.
not as concerned, as you said, with scripted books or full color books or something like that. Now they're like, you see, we'll take whatever you got.
Yeah, I don't really know what's going on with First Second right now. They're undergoing a big change over right now where they just, Macmillan, their parent company, just started a new imprint that only publishes adult graphic novels. So I think what they want to do is move my adult graphic novels there and make First Second primarily a young reader's
Mhm.
imprint. Um, so at the time that I had this one, I shopped it around to a bunch of different places, and they bought it. It's like not in their wheelhouse. I don't understand why they bought it, but they did.
Do you keep track of your sales, like, or, is that doing well compared to the other ones, et cetera, et cetera?
All of my gift books sell pretty well. Like my
Mhm.
gift comic collection books sell pretty well. But I don't know. No comics are selling. The
Okay, we'll
publishing
talk,
industry is not good.
definitely talk about
Um,
that.
yeah. That one came out next. Wait, is that true? No, wait. That's maybe not true. I started doing a. This one came out next. Sorry. More on the topic of babies, I did my first solo picture book. I've done a couple picture books where I've illustrated for other authors before. So I have like I have like four of those books, but I'd never done one solo. So this was my first solo picture book. It came out as like a big picture book, but I like the board book version better. So that's what I'm showing you. And this is also just sort of like a rhyming book about babies and how they're neat. It's a great uh, present for a baby shower. That was my
Okay.
next one. Question.
No, I was gonna say I'll put the link to that for baby shower purposes in the chat.
Oh, thank you. Buy it from your local bookstore if you can.
I'll put the
Um,
shop.org website.
thanks. So I wanted to make a middle grade series. One of the people that I worked with at First Second was Gina Gagliano. If you ever get the opportunity to work with Gina in any capacity, please do it. It's amazing. She's doing some convention planning right now, and some like she brings people into Boston to speak on comics and stuff. But she was tapped from First Second. She was sort of poached from First Second to start an imprint at Random House Graphics. So their graphic novel imprint was started by Gina, and I love to work with Gina. So I was like, all right, I am going to keep my adult work with First Second and do my younger reader stuff at Random House Graphics. And that's sort of the division. And that's also why First Second bought this, because I was like, they're my adult publisher. They're going to publish my adult work, and this is a gift book for adults. But I was like, I'm going to do a middle grade series. So I started doing middle grade series. It's based on my own experiences growing up in a blended family with stepsisters and moving from the city to the country. What this book actually is secretly a way to teach middle schoolers about where their food comes from. It's like a
Oh,
common thread in a lot of my work. It's like, oh, this is this is just a fun story about my pregnancy, but it's actually a way to teach
yeah.
people about reproductive medicine and like what that's about. And then this book is actually a way to teach kids about where food comes from, about the farm to table movement, about the work that goes into manufacturing the food that we eat, and how to understand that process. So ostensibly, it's about two stepsisters who live on a farm, and they have to learn, or it's about three stepsisters technically, but they have to learn farm chores. But it's also about farmers markets, taking care of chickens, like working with agriculture and that sort of thing. So So this was the first in the series. This is the second one. They're seasonal. This one's like spring, summer. This one's fall. And then I have the winter one coming out in August, which is called Sugar Shack. This one's about like apple orchards and dairy farms. And then the third one is about overwintering at a farm and making maple syrup and stuff. So that's that series. And I've been working on the series for about 5 years or 6 years or something. And it's wrapping up in August, so that'll be fun. In the midst of working on that, I made another collection of my sketchbook comics that were about my cat. So this is a collection of comics about owning a cat and having a cat and like the voice that I would do for my cat. They're like another fun like gift book. And Random House Graphics actually put this one out. This is the arc. The actual book is hardcover. Yeah,
We
I've
have a
got a
phrase for that. We say eventually everybody goes cat book.
yeah.
Just it is what it sounds like. Eventually you make a cat book. Okay.
Yeah. It's a storied tradition
Yeah.
for comic artists.
Yeah.
So this one came out, this and this both came out last year. 2 book year. That was a big one. This is my second solo picture book, Right Beside Me, which is a very nice story about a mom and a kid going on a bike ride, but it's also like my way to indoctrinate children into bike infrastructure. Like, I'm sneaky. Um, so this is born out of the pandemic when the only thing that we could do to not go crazy was to go on bike rides as a family, and I also had to draw my second graphic novel in the middle grade series all digitally because it was during lockdown, and it was like when we were microwaving the mail and stuff. So I was like freaked out about going to art stores and buying art supplies. So I forced myself to actually draw this one digitally, which I hated every moment of. I hate drawing
No.
digitally. Not for me. I know that this is like not the thing now. Um, there's a great story by Linda Berry. She has this really good story about when she was writing her novel Cruddy. So Linda Berry, as you all know, is a genius and an incredible comic artist. When she was writing her prose novel Cruddy, she sat down to write at the computer and she would type out a sentence and she'd be like, no, not perfect, and she would delete it. And then she'd type out 2 sentences and then she'd be like, no, and she'd delete a sentence. And it was taking her forever and she was going nowhere. So she went to the dollar store and she bought like a 10 pack of those yellow legal pads. And then she took her Sumi ink dip pen and the ink that you grind, the special ink, and she would dip her Sumi ink into the ink. She'd dip her Sumi brush into the ink and write in cursive on this giant yellow legal pad the whole novel of Cruddy. So this whole book was all written out like that, and she just had to live with the mistakes that she made, and she couldn't erase them easily, and so she just made it work. And that story is the perfect summation of why I don't like working digitally. I'll draw a line and it's not perfect, and I erase it, and I draw a line, and I'm like, no, I don't like that. When I work on traditional materials, I just have to live with my mistakes, and it makes me faster, it makes me more comfortable, and it's easier on my body. So I am a traditional materialist person. I don't like working digitally. That said, these books are colored digitally, but I have a colorist now who works on them for me. Um, because I am such a traditional material person, uh, and I didn't like working digitally on that book, I was like, I have a great idea. I'm going to make a whole picture book, which is an average of 40 pages. I'm going to paint each of the pages in gouache, which is a really fiddly medium to work with that I wasn't very familiar with. And I think I'm going to do it about crowds of bicycles. Two of the worst things to draw. So my paintings about crowds of bicycles book is this, and I think it is very pretty. But it was also like a lot of work in terms of the materials and what I put into it physically.
Mhm.
So these 2 books came out last year. I toured them both. Uh, what else? think that's it for my published books. I have a book coming out next year or in August of this year. That's the third in my middle grade series. I'm working on the follow-up to Relish. I am also working on a picture book you can see in the
Oh, yeah.
background. Those are pages I'm painting again. Um, for an imprint called Rocky Pond, which specializes in books promoting mental health for kids, which I think is really great. So I specifically sought out a smaller imprint that does good because I was sort of sick of working with a big imprint and a big publisher. You can kind of get lost in the shuffle. I wanted to find a smaller one that like paid more attention to me and wanted a book like what I want to do. It's a very sort of quiet, contemplative book about a kid with a hyperfixation on collecting rocks.
Hmm.
So it's very fiddly, and I get to draw lots of rocks, which is fun. So those are the things that I'm working on now, as well as I have an 8-year-old, and I'm the primary caregiver of said 8-year-old, so I can only work within school hours.
Right, right. Um, wow. So that's so great. So, so you currently have a book under contract with First Second for the Relish follow-up, is that correct?
Yeah.
And you're working with, I think you said Rocky Pond for this other book. So you've always got a couple publishers who you have relationships with. And tell me if I'm wrong, but Random House Graphics doesn't exist anymore, right? Or do they?
No, they're still around.
Oh,
Gina Gagliano left,
I thought
so
when
she's
Gina
not
left, they
heading it up.
folded it. Oh, I
No,
see. Oh,
it still exists.
so
It's
are they still promoting? Are they still promoting your books and stuff like that? Okay.
yeah, yeah, they're publishing like tons of books every year.
Oh,
It's just that
interesting.
Gina isn't with them anymore.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Well, I think if people have questions, because we've reached the present, we got started past,
Yeah.
we've reached the present. You can raise some hands. I know Judith had a question, and so we'll go to Judith. I had a question though. I want to go all the way back, if you don't mind. Since you mentioned going to a fine arts college, or at least one with a fine arts program, and you mentioned being really interested in comics, I wanted to know if you had done any comics in high school or anything like that.
Yeah, sketchbook comics. I hadn't published until I got to college and I started doing publishing in the school newspaper. But I had I always kept sketchbooks. I've always been a sketchbook person. I always have one on the go. And I did that in high school as well. I didn't really put it together that it was a real profession that I could do for a long time, like after I had published my first book. Um, but uh, but yeah, so I'd always done it for fun,
What
but
so
never professionally.
who were your inspirations at that point in high school and things like that?
Linda Berry. I grew up reading a lot of Calvin and Hobbes and Archie comics because in the 90s there wasn't a lot of other stuff available in the United States. My parents luckily sought out things like Tintin and Asterix and Obelix, so I had those as well. As I got into high school, I got more into like Terry Moore's Strangers in Paradise stuff. I got more into like Sandman and things, and sort of more like edgy stuff that you'd think about buying at Hot Topic now. But but at the time, it was like the only option other than reading superhero comics, and that didn't really interest me. Um, and then as soon as I got to college, I was very, very lucky because I started publishing in the school newspaper, and I was a freshman, and a senior at my school saw that I was making these comics, saw my comics in the newspaper, and emailed me, and she was like, "Hey, you're another girl making comics. We should hang out." And I was like, "Great!" And that was Hope Larson of like many wonderful graphic novels, including the adaptation to A Wrinkle in Time and Great Horses and Chiggers and all of these wonderful books. So Hope was a senior. I was a freshman. She would like have me over to dinner at her house, and she like introduced me to her then husband, who I was like, "Who's this guy?" And it was Brian Lee O'Malley, and so they like we would carpool to comic conventions and stuff like that. So she was only we only overlapped for a year, but I was lucky because that was sort of my first professional that I connected with. But I also had a live journal at the time. Everybody had a live journal. That was what people did. and we were all live journal buddies. And some of my live journal buddies are still buddies to this day and are like my professional colleagues. And so at the time, my like live journal friends were like Vera Brasgal and Kate Beaton and Jess Fink and Erica Moen and all these people that I'm still like colleagues with and have like wonderful professional careers now. Um, so we would go to conventions and like hang out IRL. But yeah, LiveJournal I really
Excellent.
credit as as a way to make these connections to begin with.
Yeah, yeah. People love LiveJournal, and people. I missed it by a couple of years, I think, but definitely people, yeah, really talk wistfully about that.
Yeah.
Um, you're friends with Jess Fink? She was a student of mine. I really love Jess. She was one of
Oh
my
yeah, Jess is the best.
awesome. Okay, so let's take Judith's question, and then Linda would like me to ask a question, and we'll see if we've got some more. Judith, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. I really appreciated hearing your journey through all the different things you did. Do you mind if I ask you how old you are?
I'm 40.
Okay. I'm just trying to place you in time of all the
Yeah.
different. I'm specifically interested in, you said about your book being banned. So I'm curious, how do you find out and how does that happen that a book is banned? And did you find it out that either helped or hindered in any way? I mean, for some people, a banned book would make them want to buy it, I would think. And how does it affect you for a book to be banned?
Um,
I mean, how would you even know that it was banned, for example? Get a
so
letter in the mail, someone shows up at your door. We're banned.
I'm pulling up a link for everybody. So there's an artist named Ryan Estrada. He has a book called The Banned Book Club. Uh, and he does a lot of work for promoting graphic novelists. Here it is. I'm putting it in the chat.
Okay, great.
So he does a lot of work with censorship in comics, and I think Ryan was the one who told me that my work had been banned, and then I looked it up and was like, oh, yep, there it is. Of course, these bans can be like big or small. They can be, like the stupid, like overarching thing that sort of covers all of the Christian nationalist nonsense. And then your books can get banned kind of in a big swath at mostly educational institutions, but there are also like smaller book bans where it's just banned at like individual schools or libraries and that sort of thing. So Relish is banned at like a big swath of things. And because Kid Gloves, my book about reproductive medicine, isn't intended for children, it is not as banned. Only some libraries ban it because it is not technically for children. I'm not like marketing it to children. It's about like being pregnant and stuff. So yeah, so that one's not as banned. But to be totally honest with you about like finding out about this stuff and keeping on top of it, I don't like doing it. Like it hurts my feelings, and
Like getting a bad review that you don't want to read or something like that.
I don't want to know. Like I don't want to know these horrible, stupid reasons. Like one of the reasons Ryan sent me this thing where he's like, here's why Relish is banned for this organization. And I was like, hmm. And one of the things is that or no, wait, this was for my middle grade series, which is also banned in certain places. So he was like, here's why this is banned. Because it depicts anxiety in younger people.
Which of course
Whoa.
doesn't exist, right?
Right. And young people don't experience that or need to like see that portrayed in their media. And I read that and I was like, you know what? I don't need to keep up with the book bans that much. Like these are all stupid. It's all bad and I don't need to know this. It doesn't like help me mentally or creatively to know this, other than the fact that like that's like I'm not going to stop depicting anxiety in my work. Like I'm not going to stop talking about reproductive medicine. I'm not going to stop any of this stuff. To know that some people don't like it like doesn't really, it's like reading your Google. It's like bad for me. I don't want to do it. So I don't keep up with it all that much. Sometimes people will send me information about it. Whenever librarians are like, hey, we're fighting this ban on your book, I'm like, please let me know if I can help. I can make art for you. I can like do a flyer, whatever you want. I'm there to help you. I endorse your work on this, but like I can't engage with these people very easily because they make me crazy.
Did your publishers mind?
Publishers do care about book bans. Unfortunately, it does affect sales, and They're kind of like they don't want to admit that they cave to this stuff, but they do care.
Uh, Anyway, if you're going to have a reaction to it, you feel proud.
Thanks. I mean, it does make me like want to make more books that they won't like. Like if they're gonna like hate on my book about making cookies with my mom, then like I'm not gonna hold back on the next one.
Right. Yeah. Anything's going to get banned, so you might as well go for it.
Yeah, right.
All right. Thanks. Thanks, Judith. Oh, Jim's got his hand up, and then I've got a couple questions in the chat.
Hi, I thank you very much. This is wonderful. I was interested to hear that you self-published your early books, and a lot of people are concerned that if they self-publish it or if they put it out on Instagram or whatever, that publisher's going to say, it's already out there. We're not interested. And obviously, you didn't have that experience. My question is more specific. What kinds of services did you use to self-publish?
Oh, let's see. I will say that publishers, like you have to do this stupid dance now that everybody's online. At the time that I self-published and then published my first book, not everybody was online, so it was a little easier to kind of fly under the radar. I was just taking it to comic conventions, so like if you didn't come to the convention, you didn't get the book. So publishers were like, this is basically not out. But you have to do this stupid dance now where you have to put enough content on the internet in order to build an audience. And publishers do look at that audience and go, ooh, they have a lot of followers. And it helps you get a publishing contract, helps you get larger numbers for your advance. But if you publish all of your work online, they won't want to put it in a book. So you have to you have to create basically 2 careers worth of work at all times. So that's all that's all you have to do. It's great. Highly recommend.
Thank you very much.
I know that doesn't help or answer your question. It's something I'm struggling with now, as you can probably tell, because I am very sad about it. I recently put a recipe comic online, and people were like, "Wow, this is great. You should do a book of these." And I was like, "I did 20 years ago. I did a book of this. Could you please buy it? Like, could you buy the book? You like this, right? You like it? Please buy the book." Unfortunately, having a lot of followers does not translate to actual book sales. It helps, and it helps your publisher give you a better advance because they know you have an audience and they know that you'll do the work of your publicity and marketing through your followers. Because what happened during the pandemic is when publishing was hurting, they fired all of the publicity and marketing people because authors weren't going on book tours, and they made all the interns have to do that job. And so now the publishing industry has like 4 interns doing the work of all of these seasoned professionals that formerly did this. This is why authors don't go on tours anymore. This is why like publicity, you're just expected to like be on book talk, like doing this with your book. I don't know. The relationship with internet and publishing industry is really fraught, and it's really bad right now, in particular because of AI. So I wish you all luck out there. It's not good.
All right, Jim. I don't know if that was the answer you were looking for.
I'm at a different sort of stage of life, so I'm happy to self-publish. And if I sell books to my friends, that's fine. I'm not trying to make a career out of it, so I'm not
Great.
so concerned. But anyway, thank you for your answer and good luck in the future.
Thank you. I mean, self-publishing is awesome, and I highly recommend it. I still do zines and self-publishing as well, and I think it's great. And it's sort of escaped this weird thing that's happening in publishing right now, which is cool. So highly recommend self-publishing. Oh, the people I used like Lulu early on in my career to print books, but they took a pretty big cut. And then I used this company that I don't even remember to print Relish. But it was basically just like a printing company.
Yeah, I've used Lulu as well, and I'm happy with them. And again, the size of the cut, I haven't compared it to so many other folks, but it's convenience and the fact that I have a site that has all my books on it now.
Yes, it's great. And they make beautiful quality books. So
Yeah, yeah, they do.
Yep.
Thanks. Thanks, Jim. All right, I'm going to ask Adrian's question, and it's a career question. She says, a lot of pros say it's hard to work full time in comics. So they often have a spread of work, like some teach, they do contract work, others have day jobs. And then she says, does having more than one book published help you stay within comics as a full-time career, or do you still need to take on work outside of comics or adjacent stuff?
Um, because I have a pretty big backlog, it does help support me doing exclusively comics, which is great. That said, like it's also a full-time job to self-promote, to make content, to do that sort of thing, and to like also like, live a life and take care of a kid. But yeah, so I'm lucky that I have like all of my published works that generate a little bit of revenue for me, and I have a Patreon that generates a pretty good chunk of change every month, which is really, really nice and keeps me afloat. So I make exclusive comics for that. I do commission work for that. I do like behind the scenes stuff on that, and yet another full-time job. But I do basically do exclusively comics if you don't count all of the pro bono work that I do. Um, I do a lot of work for local bookstores and libraries, and that's just something I do. Like I donate my work to that.
Nice. Thanks. I want to locate Linda's question again. Sorry, it was here. Oh, what kind of promotion are you doing these days? Book tours and social media and shows. Um,
I'll go to a show locally if
mhm.
uh, if they invite me. I'll go to anything that people invite me to that they'll pay the travel for, usually. Um, so I do some school visits, I do some convention visits and stuff, but it doesn't make a lot of like I don't table anymore because it doesn't financially make a lot of sense for me to spend my time like my whole weekend doing that work and like paying for it anymore because I have publishers that publish my book, so I don't make a lot of money directly from sales in person. But I do a lot of signings and I set up my own tours for books now because my publisher doesn't really do it. Uh, I do this not because it translates directly to sales, although it does help. I do it because I really believe in independent bookstores and I really believe in the relationship of the creator and the reader, and I want to have that relationship maintained. So, for example, for this book here, when it came out over the summer, I like threw my kid in a car and we drove across country for a month, stopping at any independent bookstore that would have me and doing events there. And it was awesome. I sold like prints and mini comics and pins and patches and stuff to pay for the trip. And we slept on, in people's guest rooms and crashed on couches and stuff. And it was an awesome experience. And I would do it again. And I will have to do it again this summer, probably. Um, and it made this book hit the indie bestseller list. Unfortunately, publishers don't really care about that. They care about your online sales, and I wasn't doing enough to promote that.
Oh, wow. Hmm.
So, but I don't like that doesn't feed my soul. So I don't want to be on like TikTok doing dancing. So But what I was able to do is go to these bookstores, make connections with not just the booksellers, but the readers, and people like drove for 2 hours to come and meet me, and like my kid got to go to all these cool places, and I sang my little ukulele song at all of these places, and it was really, really nice. And I just sort of like went everywhere I could reach from the Chicagoland area within the span of like 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. And that was the promotion I did for my last book. I also make comics leading up to the publication date of every book, so that people kind of keep it on their radar online. But I don't like online promotion, and I'm not very good at it. My publisher puts like Facebook ads up and stuff, so I'm like, you guys handle that.
Cool. Wow, I love all of your sneaky and opinionated politics that keeps coming up. Like, I love that all of your books have these sneaky political sort of undercurrent. I love that you're like, um, it doesn't feed my soul to do online marketing, so I'm gonna pack my 8-year-old in a car and that's awesome. It's really just so gladdening to hear. I have a couple questions from the chat about the digital process. One, they're asking if you created your own font, did you do it in Photoshop? Did you do your lettering in Photoshop? Do you scan it and then give it to your colorist? And what is that process?
I did create my own font. I think I used font. I don't remember the program.
Fontographer,
It was, yeah,
Fontographer,
it might have been. I mean, I started
calligrapher.
out doing it on that like freefonts.com kind of thing, and it was, but yeah, calligrapher is what it became, and I wasn't very good at it, and then like I tweaked it around. I've gotten better. So yeah, I just like whatever's easy and like affordable. So yes, I made my own font for my middle grade series, and then I scan my work in. My scanner is really temperamental and bad, so I actually have a $50 scanner that I use most of the time that's like pretty reliable. Scanning technology is not keeping up with digital technology, and it really frustrates me because it makes me feel like I'm going to be obsolete soon. But yeah, like sometimes I go to the library and use their nice big scanner. That's what I had to do for this book. I actually went to my alma mater. I went to SAIC, the Center for the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, and I worked in their media lab. And I went in, and there's like 3D printers, and there's like all this cool stuff in their media lab that like the students were all working on. And then there was like one dusty old big printer in the corner that I had like blew the dust off to work on, and that was how I scanned all the big paintings for that, which was fun. So yeah, so I do a lot of scanning. And then I edit them in Photoshop. I place all the text in Photoshop, and then I send the file to my colorist.
Right. Let's see. I so two last questions. One is that I didn't know until I looked on Wikipedia, but you went to Poughkeepsie Day School. Is that right?
Yeah,
I'm from
yeah.
Kingston, New York. I didn't know
Oh,
we
nice.
grew up nearby. That's so
Yeah, my
cool.
mom lives in Rhinebeck, right across the
Oh,
river.
no kidding?
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm going there in like a week and a half or something.
oh, oh, fun. Um, since you mentioned she was a chef, was she involved with the culinary school there?
No, she's taught like workshops at the CIA, but no, her career, she was a caterer in
Mhm.
Rhinebeck for like 35 years or something like
Oh,
that.
fancy.
Um, and then before that, she worked in New York City restaurants.
Okay, interesting. And lastly, because we touched on it before the call, can you tell us about the tattoos?
Yes. Um, Here, I'm gonna take my sweatshirt off. Uh, so I have a tattoo for every book that I've published. Not all of my tattoos are publishing tattoos, but a lot of them are. So my first publishing tattoo is this one. This is the ISBN number for French Milk. Um, so this is my first publishing one. This is the ISBN number for Relish. And then I stopped doing the numbers and just started getting the symbology. So let's see. This is Apple Crush. It's literally an apple crush. This is the one about my cat. It's my cat. Let's see. Oh, this is for Go to Sleep, I Miss You. I got this one, which is my kiddo. Um,
What about
for
displacement?
for displacement, I got is it on this arm or this arm? It's this arm. My
Uh,
grandfather's scout plane.
wow.
So my grandfather was a World War II scout pilot, and he was a pacifist. So he didn't have a gun on his plane. He just scouted, and it's really cool. And he told me lots of cool stories about that when we were on that trip together. So that was my displacement one. My age of license one. What did I get for that? I can't remember. Oh, the teapot. I got the teapot because I drank a lot of tea on that trip. Um, and then oh, for kid gloves, the one about my kid,
Uh-huh.
I have a full like leg piece that goes from like almost my hip to my ankle. That's a plant with the same name as my actual real life child, which I don't share publicly. That's 19 inches long, and my kid was 19 inches when they were
Oh,
born.
amazing. These are such beautiful, totem is the wrong word. They're just such beautiful homages or something to these life transitions. That's amazing. I love that.
My My tattoo artist calls them shimmers, which was a new word for me. I was very excited to learn it.
I,
It is the opposite of a trigger. A shimmer is like something that you encounter that gives you like a pleasurable feeling. And yeah, and she was like,
wow.
"That's what you're getting. You're getting like shimmers." And I was like, "Oh, yeah."
Did they
Um,
invent that word? I have never heard that word.
no, I guess it's a, I looked it up later and I was like, "Oh, yeah, how neat."
Wow. Oh, wow. So many takeaways on this call, and shimmer is
New
definitely one of them.
vocabulary and everything.
Okay, great. Last call for questions. Otherwise, we will let Lucy get back to that painted page over there. Um, it's really been awesome hearing about it, and hearing about all your work. Yeah, the chat. You guys, you can all right. I'm gonna hang on a second. Blah 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 blah. Okay. Yeah, well, thank you, Lucy. This is really awesome. Will you go to Cake in Chicago? Will you go to that convention?
I believe so.
I
I
don't,
can't
they just
remember
announced the
if
dates, but I forget when it is, to be honest. It
I gotta
changed.
look up the dates. I go out east, go to my mom's house in Rhinebeck with my kid every summer for like 5 weeks because it's better than summer camp. It's great. We just like go
Oh,
to
right.
woods and stuff. So sometimes cake overlaps with that and sometimes it
Yeah.
doesn't. I took my kid is now almost 9, but a few years ago we went to Cake and it was really funny because I make a lot of work about my kids, so sometimes other comic artists recognize my kid, like they'll be like, "Oh." So we walked into this big indie comic show and we were walking around and my kid would like go up to a table and people would be like, "I recognize you. I've seen comics about you. Here, do you want a free comic?" And my kid was like, "Oh, I like this. This is great." And then like kept going from table to table, like getting free stuff.
Oh, nice.
And like
Hanging out.
and it was really nice. And like my kid's a big reader and loves comics. And so it was great because we got to meet like a lot of their the artists that they really love. And so we try to go to a lot of these shows together and it's really fun. I got to take my kid to San Diego last year. I got to go to San Diego Comic Con and that was really cool to get to do. So I hoped I get to go to Cake this year. I don't know if it'll overlap with when I'm here.
Okay. Well, maybe I'm not sure if I'm going, but if I do, maybe I'll see you, and that would be awesome.
Yeah, good. I hope so.
Maybe I'll have some new tattoos because I'm really just inspired by that method, that sort of that process of like, oh, okay, of documenting these important life transitions, even if it's a book or a child, they're all
Right.
related. And again, I'm gonna go pick up some of those books with the sneaky political subtext, like about how food is grown and things like that. Thanks so much, Lucy. I'm gonna ask everybody to unmute and give you a round of applause. I really, really appreciate this. Thank you. And yeah, go continue your awesome career. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
me and thanks all for your kind
Thanks.
attention.
Thank you
Yay, thank
so
Thank you very
much.
much.
I
You're
learned so
great.
much.
Okay.
Thank
Really
you.
cool.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Lucy,
Cool.
so much.
Very inspiring.
My
Buy their books.
pleasure.
I'm going to put it
Bye.
in the chat again.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. Last moment to click that chat button. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
That was fabulous.
Thanks for joining us. This has been a production of the Sequential Artists Workshop, or SAW. You can find us on social media at Comics Workshop and online at sawcomics.org. You can hear about our many courses at learn.sawcomics.org. SAW is a nonprofit and supported by people like you. Learn how to make a tax-deductible donation at the donate page of sawcomics.org. You can join our free community of comics explorers at members.sawcomics.org. Thanks so much for being here.